The Praetor was one of the most important magistrates in ancient Rome, holding a position that combined military authority, political power, and judicial responsibility. Although the role changed significantly over the centuries, the Praetor remained a central part of Roman government for a very long time. In its earliest form, the title likely referred simply to a leader or commander, someone who stood at the front and exercised authority over others. Over time, however, the office developed into one of the key institutions of the Roman Republic, and later continued in altered forms during the Roman Empire and even the Byzantine Empire. In the early Roman Republic, the exact nature of the Praetor is somewhat unclear because ancient historical accounts often projected later political structures backward into earlier history. Roman writers, such as Livy, claimed that the praetorship was formally created in 367 BC through the Licinian Sextian reforms, supposedly to reduce the burden on the consuls by assigning judicial duties to a separate magistrate. However, modern historians believe the development was far more gradual. In the earliest Republican period, the term praetor may simply have meant leader or commander, rather than referring to a clearly defined political office. Early Roman military leaders may have functioned in ways similar to praetors before the role became formally organized within the state system. As the Roman Republic became more politically structured, the praetorship evolved into an official magistracy. Praetors were elected officials who held imperium, the legal authority to command armies and exercise executive power. Because of this, they ranked among Rome's highest magistrates. They wore the toga praetexta, sat on the ceremonial sella curulis, and were accompanied by 6 lictors as symbols of authority. Although praetors ranked below consuls, they still possessed significant power and could command armies, govern provinces, and oversee legal matters. Their authority was substantial, though still subject to the political hierarchy of Rome. One of the praetor's most important responsibilities became the administration of justice. As Rome grew larger and more legally complex, judicial work became increasingly important. The Praetor urbanus, or urban praetor, handled civil disputes between Roman citizens. He became one of the most important judicial officials in the city. In the absence of the consuls, the urban praetor could even act as the senior magistrate in Rome, organizing the city's defense if necessary and summoning the Senate. Because his responsibilities were centered in Rome, he was generally not allowed to leave the city for extended periods. He also issued the famous Praetorian Edict, which outlined how he intended to apply legal remedies during his term. Although praetors technically could not create entirely new laws, their interpretations and legal decisions strongly shaped the development of Roman law over time. As Roman territory expanded beyond Italy, a second major praetorship was created, the Praetor Peregrinus. This magistrate dealt with legal disputes involving foreigners or cases between Roman citizens and non-citizens. However, his role was not purely judicial. Because praetors possessed military authority, the Praetor Peregrinus could also be assigned military commands or administrative duties outside Rome when needed. As Rome's overseas territories grew, more praetors were created to manage expanding responsibilities. Additional praetorships appeared to govern provinces such as Sicily, Sardinia, and the Spanish territories. Eventually, as Rome became a Mediterranean empire, the number of praetors increased significantly. Praetors also played an important role in military affairs. Since they possessed imperium, they could command Roman armies, especially when consuls were unavailable or when multiple military campaigns required additional leadership. Former praetors could also have their authority extended through a process known as prorogation, allowing them to continue commanding armies or governing provinces as propraetors. This system gave Rome greater flexibility in managing its growing military commitments. In many cases, praetors gained valuable battlefield experience and used military success to advance their political careers. Within the Roman legal system, praetors had enormous influence. In civil trials, they often supervised the first stage of legal proceedings. Rather than deciding the case themselves in every instance, they would establish the legal framework, define the issues, and appoint a judge who would make the final decision. This system allowed Roman law to function efficiently while giving praetors significant interpretive power. In criminal cases, praetors could preside over permanent courts known as questiones perpetuae, which handled serious public crimes such as corruption, bribery, treason, fraud, assassination, and other offenses against the state. During the late Republic, the praetorship became an increasingly important step in the Roman political career ladder. Ambitious politicians often sought the office as preparation for higher positions, especially the consulship. Over time, rules about age and political sequence became more formalized. The office was prestigious, but also demanding, requiring administrative skill, political judgment, and sometimes military leadership. Successful praetors could enhance their reputations greatly through effective governance or military victory. Major political reforms dramatically changed the office. Under Sulla, the number of praetors increased as Rome's provincial administration expanded. Julius Caesar later increased the number even further to handle the demands of the growing empire. However, under Augustus and the establishment of the Roman Empire, the political meaning of the office changed significantly. Real power increasingly shifted to the emperor, while traditional republican offices became less independent. Praetors continued to exist, but their authority became more administrative than truly political. They still handled judicial matters and official duties, but they no longer held the same level of independent power they had once possessed in the Republic. By the later Roman Empire, the praetorship had changed dramatically. Its responsibilities became far more ceremonial and local. Praetors often focused on municipal duties, such as organizing public games or funding civic projects, rather than exercising real executive authority. Even so, the office remained socially prestigious, especially for members of the aristocracy seeking entry into elite political circles. Remarkably, the title survived even after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In the Byzantine Empire, the Greek form praetor continued to be used for administrative and judicial officials. Emperor Justinian reformed the office, assigning praetors new provincial responsibilities and police powers in some cases. Over time, the role evolved further, becoming part of Byzantine civil administration rather than a direct continuation of its republican origins. The history of the praetor reflects the broader history of Rome itself. What began as a military leadership role gradually became one of the Republic's most important magistracies, central to law, governance, and military administration. Although its powers changed across centuries, the praetor remained a symbol of Roman authority, discipline, and legal tradition, leaving a lasting influence on the development of Western political and legal institutions.